Well, one of the things I tell a lot of my clients in the service business, because I'm in the service business, is that the most important thing is to build trust and value quickly.
Hmm.
And that can be challenging when you're strangers. So yes, this any opportunity to be seen and heard is greatly appreciated. Um, but yeah, my agenda is to help people. I'm actually working with a um, registered therapist. She's workplace health and safety, and she coaches people who are on stress leave and gives them therapy and stuff. And we're trying to create a 6 episode webinar podcast, whatever you want to call it, on leadership and mental health.
Hmm.
Because my entire career, I went from snake pit to snake pit, filling in behind really bad leadership,
Hmm.
and the level of damage that could be done is extensive. Like I remember I was managing one store. You're in the States, right?
No, I'm actually just north of Toronto.
Oh, okay. So I was managing a Zellers, and when I got there, I found out there was a 125,000 square foot huge anchor, and there were 3 garbage cans that were along the front of the store, and then the staff parking was beyond that. And the previous manager, when team members would see her car as they were walking, they would have to pick which garbage can they could make it to throw up. And I'm like, that's like, and that's like minimum wage jobs. Like that's no way to live.
Yeah, totally.
It's just astounding to me. And people believe, leaders believe that paying is the compensation for, I don't know, whatever level of abuse they think is appropriate. But I found very quickly in my career, compensation is an entitlement. It's not a motivator.
Hmm.
This is what you want to do, right? You want to just talk, get to know each other.
Yeah. No.
So I had this kid one time working for me for the summer, about 17, and about 5 weeks in, he sheepishly comes to the door of my office. He's looking at, I'm like, hey, buddy, what can I do? And he goes, I was just wondering, how do we get paid? I'm like, what? He goes, I haven't been paid yet. I'm like, oh my God. So I took him and I got a check cut for him and we took him to payroll. We got him set up. And I said, like, listen, don't wait. Like, please let us know. So what I did was I put in my calendar every time we hired somebody that next payday, I found them and I said, did your pay go in okay?
Hmm.
And it was just for my peace of mind. So I didn't have another 17-year-old kid not having money for McDonald's, but it also built a huge um, the relationship thing because it was a sign of caring. And David, I love the word diabolical. Like I said, it was so I didn't hurt people and embarrass myself and have people not getting paid, but the value it brought was enormous. But then I also would notice that same seven, not that same guy, but a same 17-year-old kid, they never came to me and thanked me for a pay ever. But they'd stand in my door, tapping their pay stub, going, you shorted me 5 hours last week.
Hmm.
Yeah, so entitlement or pay is an entitlement. It's not a motivator. You have to do far more. And if you got people throwing up walking into work,
Yeah, that's
like,
just sad.
oh, but it happens. Like I said, my entire career in 3 corporations was going from snake pit to snake pit and following terrible leadership.
And so what do you do when you like what's your plan when that happens?
Um, Again, the exact same thing. You have to build value and trust really, really quickly. Um, there's a Everybody knows the 80-20 rule, but I was told this one time, and that I don't know if it's scientific or if it's just mythological, but I like it. It's 20 60 20. Whenever you join any group, whenever you go into any group as a leader, 20% are cheerleaders. They love they're all in. Oh, you're the best. Oh, this is it. And if you stay in that group, you're going to be disillusioned because they'll build you up with bullshit. Um, the 60% are mediocre. They're hesitant on the fence. They're cautious. They and then the bottom 20% are either negative or toxic and don't believe and they're the challenge. So you get the 20%, you get them riled up, you find out what motivates them, you get them to be your peaceful army of happiness, and you start to engage and listen to and build with the 60% and bring them over. And my logo was a warrior helmet. Um, I the one word I think for leadership that is just pivotal, just like if I was to sum it up in one word, because I build these little acrylic frames for people, and I put their 4 goals for the year, and then I put a quote here. But if I was just to put it to one word, it's thoughtfulness. Listen, listen beyond words, have generous listening, figure out what the root of the problems are, fix them, be accountable, be dependable and consistent. And then you build them like my biggest and favorite question is, what do you want? And then if it's reasonable and it aligns with the business, and we can do it. And reasonable to me, David, is far more vast than most people. Like I've done some really off the wall things. And then I say, now here's what I want. I want you to be kind. I want you to give people more than they expect and give it graciously. I want you to be building each other up. I want you to take exceptional care of the people who come in here to shop with us, but I want you to take even better care of each other. And when they know that you're going to be consistent and you deliver that, like I have built some absolutely amazing teams. And the other thing, because I'm transient, or was, I would say, you have a short time with me. I need to work myself out of a job.
Mhm.
I need you guys to build strength, confidence, and autonomy so that I'm not needed. And that's how I would do it. I would just, and like when I would move around, um, I would usually move and stay in a hotel because I hadn't moved my house yet, and I'd get a hotel as close to the store as possible, and I'd set up some sort of sleeping arrangement in my office. Like I remember one time I had these no arm back chairs, and I interchanged them, so I had like one back, and I made like a stretch where I could sleep because I'd stay there. I would stay with the night crew, and if it was like 3 in the morning, and I had people coming at 6, I'd just go crash for 3 hours, and I was all in, and and they all saw it, and yeah, you get their trust, you get their loyalty, they'll run any mountain for you.
Yeah, I liked what I like how you said that don't get used to having me around, right? I think that what it does is it builds people. First of all, it sets expectations because we all know that employees aren't going to be there forever in most cases, right? And then it also allows people to take the reins, right? So if they have the know-how or the opportunity, they'll make those decisions or make that effort because they know that somebody's going to have to, because you're not going to be there forever. But if you were effectively there forever, you could just be that person that would answer every question.
But that's the mistake people make, is they think
Yeah.
that their value is in being needed. And I'm working with one guy, and I said to him, he wants to be a great. His agenda is, I want to be a great leader. I want to be recognized in my organization as a great leader. And I said, there's 2 ways to do that. First, and the easiest one, is to build a great team, and then the second is to be a builder of leaders. And until you can build your replacement, you won't be great. And I said, like, I think your agenda is misguided because it feels like you want to build you up, but to be great, you have to be the person that builds other people up, and give them the confidence. There's a quote, and I don't, with the internet and AI and everything else, I should actually look it up because I don't know the origin, but I don't care because I've been telling it for too long and I can get away with it. It's either Attila the Hun or Genghis Khan, two reputable, fine gentlemen in the history of the world, right? Like not mean, vicious leaders at all. And they said, as an alpha, as a lion, as a leader, I can lead any army of lambs to victory. And they're completely wrong. They're whoever it was, and if it was both of them, they're both wrong. It should be, I would rather be a lamb in charge of an army of lions than a lion in charge of an army of lambs. And I always ask people when I'm talking, I said, what does that mean? And they just struggle with it. And I said, it's that the lamb has commanded such respect and loyalty and authority from an army of lions that they listen, they command, they follow, they charge. If I as a lamb fall in battle, my army continues. And that's my responsibility. If I'm a lion and I fall in battle, my army of lambs gets slaughtered. So, and then I also say, and I talk a little inappropriately, David, and I always go, and that lamb gets all the chicks, man. Like that lamb is one kick-ass lamb. Like he's, and I make a reference to that the young people sometimes get it. It says like Fonzie on Happy Days. Every guy wanted to be him. Every girl wanted to date him. Toughest guy in town. You never saw him aggressive, ever. He just commanded that respect and authority, and he was kind, and he kissed Mrs. C all the time, and like he was the lamb in charge of an army of lions. Yeah,
and it seems like, I've had a few years this work thing, right? It seems like people just in workplace just often miss the opportunities because they don't have their confidence, right? And they're afraid to make mistakes, and it doesn't make any sense to me in some cases. And I'm thinking of this. So way back, in the early 90s, I was selling office supplies, right? And it was a decent job in the sense, pay wise, right? But this is before technology, right? So I had a customer service person. I had to drive around, visit customers. I would absolutely love to drive around and visit 5 customers a day and say I was busy, right? Like that was like in today's world, like that would have been, and with no
slacker.
cell phones, no anything, right? If I was far away from the office, I'd have to dial in, using the payphone and talk to my customer service guy. And he had, he was afraid to make mistakes. And so finally, and it's funny because he actually was in with the company longer than I, he knew processes better than I, and I just gave him the power, like to do whatever, right? Match pricing, give discounts, just whatever, just keep the customer happy. If they want a better price on one item at a 200 that they give you, and the company's spending 60 grand worth of office supplies a year, who cares? Just do it, right? But it was something that I had to approve, right? So I just said, like, between you and me, like, it's not worth my time, right? Just make that decision. Say I gave you the power to do it, and I'll back you up. And it took a while before he, got the confidence to do it, and finally, he handled it, and we worked really well together. But he didn't realize that I just didn't want to stop at a payphone at 100 degrees and drop a quarter in and sweat my rear end off in my suit, and my car would be warm by the time I got done, and it was just a pain in the rear for me, right?
What
But
I
he ended up turning this pivotal thing of having power to moving up and making better decisions, and whatever. I didn't realize it was such an impactful thing in his career looking back at it, but it totally helped him, right? It just gave him a little bit of confidence to do things.
Well, what I used to tell people, my people, is I would say, you see what I do, you see how I do it. I said, like, take a risk, make a decision. Like the goal is give people more than they expect and give it graciously and find ways to say yes, don't say no. And
Mm,
I said, be as creative as you want. And here's the thing, you'll never get in trouble.
mm,
If you make a terrible mistake and you went way over, and we'll have a conversation like, okay, in this situation next time, don't give away the farm.
mm,
But you're free to go, and I will support whatever decision you make, and we will address it after as a congratulations, this was fantastic, or maybe tweak it this way a little bit. And they would do it, and they would go, and they would come back and like fantastic, great, like because the majority of the time, David, just like I didn't care, like yeah, that's great. You saved me time. Keep going. But the thing I find with leaders is it's kind of like people with interviews. Like I interviewed, oh my gosh, I had to be thousands of people in my career, and especially young people or people who have been in a job for a while. They think that the interviewing skill is a natural born talent. They just go there with hope and potential of charisma, and it's a prepared skill. It's like you got to practice, you got to do it, you got to do your research, you got to like have your neighbors interview you as a mock interview. You got to do all those things. Leadership is the same thing. The person who's best at it tends to get put as a leader, and they don't have any training, they don't have any experience, any background.
it really is, what's amazing is when it comes to leadership is people don't realize in coaching is that the best of the best have a coach, right? Like the top athletes have a handful of coaches, right? Top executives in organizations have coaches in big organizations. And really to me, it's a willingness to see something potentially different or and even if that see something different is just open to change 1% of their actions, right? And it's really not much, but 1% in a 10,000 organization has a trickle down effect that's pretty large. But what often surprises me is how many times over the years that I've seen businesses that went, 0 to 60 really quick and then plateaued. Okay? And unless, you have a product or a service that you can sell to, 5 companies, right? So you've maxed out but it's amazing how many times that I've seen 0 to 60 real quick and then plateaued. And to me, I always think that's the owner or the CEO's inability to be flexible and to leverage your talent. General statement, but
Yeah. Um, I do two things in my initial meetings with people. I have two questionnaires. The first one is, what were your plans for last year? What were your top four plans for last year? What did you achieve? And what did you learn? And what are your targets and plans for this year? And then I do a financial one. I'm like, what was your top line sales? What were your pipelines? What are your core products? And what was your profit? And then what are your targets for this year? And how are you doing so far?
mm,
And those two sheets, David, in like every ounce of my being, if you're going to be successful in business, those need to be top of mind and things you can give instantly. To date, no one has been able to do it.
mm,
And that's like the flourishing of the talent and doing all this and a development plan for people. All those things are key and important, but they can't even structure that. And that's what I'm saying. Like when I have my initial meeting, I do a first free hour and I give them one to fill out and then I give them a blank one. And I say, even if we don't move forward, please, wherever your year end is, 30 days before, do this
mm,
and build your plan for the following year. Know, pardon me, and know what's happening, because if you have this structured plan, if you have that laser focus, and that's why the acrylics are small. I only allow four.
Hmm.
You only have 4 goals for the year, and then go do it. And then you will achieve what you want to. If it's in your mind or you think and you haven't built it with your team and you don't have an alignment, so you're all charging to the same direction, like what's the point?
No, it's really amazing when you really think about it, right? Like, so, not to minimize what you just said, but if you hired somebody to, put an addition on your house, right? And they
Yeah.
showed up with just and just said, "Oh, we okay, what's this going to look like? Oh, we don't really know." Right? And just ordered a bunch of lumber saying, we don't know what exactly it is we're building, but we'll have it all here on hand. You just think that person's crazy and you ask for him to be removed from your property, him or her,
Yep.
right? So to have that same philosophy when it comes to business, as far as where do you think, what do you need, what are you hoping to accomplish? It doesn't seem so unrealistic that, to actually, or it seems pretty unrealistic not to have that.
So the other thing too, and this
By
is,
the way, I don't have it in my business, which shame on me because I should know better.
well, I can give you a first free hour, David.
Mhm.
Um, MCO, it's a plumbing wholesaler.
Mhm.
Rick Fantham is the CEO, does $6 billion a year across Canada. He's also the parent company CTO of Joka down in the States, $6 billion, $12 billion in total. Best leader I've ever worked for in my life. I was a little guy. I was the regional manager for St. Catharines, Niagara, with 2 wholesale warehouses and 1 high-end showroom. And he was phenomenal. I left there probably 7, 8 years ago, and 3 times since then I've called him and asked him for help, and he's still delivered. He has an equation for success, and it is perfect. It's L times P times C equals R. Do you want to
L
guess? Or do you want to guess, or do you want me to tell you?
L times P,
P times C equals R.
so labor costs, payroll equals revenue.
Uh, you got 25% on the test, and you're gonna have to stay after school today and clean the chalkboards. um, B, and attract world-class leaders. L, inspire and develop people. P, build client and customer loyalty. C, and you'll get the revenue you deserve. Now, I saw him. We saw him. Like I always say, like he kept his cards close. He was very discreet, but he was having conflict with the #1 top performing profit center, and that's what he called them. He said, "We don't apologize for making money." Profit center manager of the company, the best revenue generating business in the country, and he was treating his people terribly. And Rick gave him a couple warnings, and then he let him go. And he said, "If you aren't world class leader and inspiring people, I don't want you."
Mm.
First place I'd ever seen that. Everywhere else was if you had severed heads in your freezer and threw bags of puppies in the river, but you got delivered results, you were a hero.
Yeah, Jack
And
Welch has said that's the hardest person to get rid of, right? Is a top performer, the high performer with no
low
morals.
trust. Yeah, that's the easiest person in the world. You just pay them and get them out of you. You wouldn't let toxicity stay in your body. You'd
Mhm.
you'd remove it
Mhm.
like effectively. Um, but that's the equation. And when you would have to present to Rick every year your business plan, and I was borrowing like about $2 million a year from him to run the business. He goes, "Why should I give you my money? What did you promise me last year? How did you do? What did you learn? And what do you promise me this year?" Sound familiar?
Mhm.
It's the exact sheet I took. And one of Rick's big things is he said, to be successful in business, you need an R&D department. Rip off and duplicate. Because if you see something that works, take it. That's why I
Mhm.
told him, I said, I'm stealing this from you and I'm using it as my own. But that's the equation. And when you're doing your sources, your first goal should be, am I a world-class leader? and am I attracting world-class leaders? And am I aspiring and developing people? And your four goals need to match that equation. And then results are your blood tests. That's how you're doing. I don't know what my triglycerides are right now, but when I go to my doctor, I get my blood test, and I stop eating so many chicken wings, John. Like, you got to stop, right? Like, if you got to know your financials, but it's the report, it's not the driver. And that's the whole thing about building and taking care of people, and focusing on that. If you do that, if you attract world-class leaders, be a world-class leader, and inspire and develop people, your results will skyrocket. They will not plateau. You will continue to grow. It's amazing. The other thing Rick gave me, which was I was pretty good at it before, but I never was as conscious of it until after him. The core values of this company are straight talk, generous listening, trust and respect, fairness and caring. And he said the key is you can't do one without the other. Because, like, you can't say, I think you're being a jerk, and I'm just using straight talk, because that's not very respectful or caring.
Mhm.
But the generous listening, David, is incredible, because words only account for 9% of communication. If you can hone your skills to listen to everybody, the information you can gain and gather is exceptional, and you can seem like you're bordering on magical. Um, one of the things one of the things I used to do when I was hiring salespeople, and I started doing it for everybody, I have one of the strangest interview processes I've been told that anybody's ever experienced, because I try to remove people's masks. I try to get to their genuine who they are and how they react and how they respond. And I pay attention to their cues, nonverbal cues, everything. But one of the things I do is I say, because when somebody gives you access to their office, to their space, to their room, that is a gift beyond a gift. So what I say to them, we're in my office, and I said, I want you to do an exercise. It's going to be a little awkward. I promise you'll be safe. There's nothing, no tricks to it. But if we start, you have to finish it, because then that shows me you can execute a difficult task. And if you break, that tells me that you're challenged on difficult tasks. And I said, so can we have permission to do this? And they said, yeah. And I said, you don't have to do this right now, David. But I go, I want you to close your eyes and not open them. And they close their eyes, and I said, now tell me what you noticed about my office. And they'll try to recap something of whatever they saw. And I said, with your eyes still closed, and with what you recapped, and without flattering me because you're trying to get the job, how would you approach me as a salesperson? What would from what I'm showing you impact the way you approach me? And then because, like, my stuff is always like family, fun, caring, encouragement, all that stuff. So I'm definitely a supporter. So if you do this, it'll make your people feel great. They'll be stronger, better, faster. You'll be running. If I got academic, you'll be the most knowledgeable. You'll be the most with this, whatever. If it's sports, like, this will drive your team to win. Like, we tell you with all of these things, but we also do it with nonverbal cues. And if you can genuinely listen, your impact can be exceptional. Yeah, I'm a storyteller, David, but there's one that was real. He's one of my Google reviews, and I was shocked by it, because one of the things I do when I start with people is I say you have three options for John. You have puppy dog John, yeah, you're gonna jump around, cuddly, wet nose, excited. You can have patient John, where I wait for you to get to realization, to think, or you can give me permission to be direct John, and we can just get some stuff done. And everybody takes direct John, which is fantastic, except for this one girl in her 20s, which scared the crap out of me. She goes, can I have puppy dog John? And I'm like, I don't know what that means. No, no. End the meeting. So they all asked, I was invited to their leadership summit. It was just three of them. And they were having a Saturday where they were planning the year and doing all this stuff. And she's admin support and doing all the hustle and stuff like that. And she's great. And then the operations manager, she takes care of all the fulfillment, all the flowing. And he's the owner and manager of the business. It's financial advisory. And I asked him, I said, what's going on? What's happening? What are your challenges? And the operations manager tells me that we're growing well. I feel like I'm at capacity, and I would just like some systems in place to make sure that we can stay in front of what's coming. And I asked him, I said, what's your goal? He goes, I want the business to grow. The goal is I want all three of us, our compensation to grow by 25%. And I want us to be able to have that income to be able to, because I love my team and they're great. And I said, what about what she just said about systems and operations? He goes, oh, and then he goes, I told you. I said, you're great at what you do. I have the ultimate confidence in you. I know you're going to be able to do it. You just have to believe in yourself. And I'm watching her. And I looked at him, I said, remember you said direct John, right? He said, yeah. I said, I'm gonna do something right now. He was okay. And I looked at her and I said, this concern about fulfillment and systems and stuff. Do you sleep? She's like, yeah. I said, often? She goes, yeah. I said, if I could have a magic wand and give you systems and execution so you could guarantee the high level fulfillment that you demand of yourself, would you forfeit that 25% raise? And she goes, every day. And I looked at him, I said, you got to listen to your people. Everything you did was great. You want growth, you got this leadership thing, you're communicating, you're aligning, you're building autonomy, you're encouraging her, but you didn't listen. And he gave me a good review. I thought I was going to be thrown out. But that's like she thinks I'm a magician. And so does the admin, because I like she witnessed it happen. But all I was doing was I was listening. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, it's an interesting narrativerse or different scales, personality types, and you find that the CEOs in a lot of companies are, I would think, by proportion are higher than average on some form of higher than average on some form of character trait that
Driver.
that can be their driver, right? Like, um, so so then they don't often understand or they don't often understand regular things as other people see. Even if you look at um what is it, the somebody said if you're egotistical or have what is it, which character trait is it? I'm trying to pull the stats together, but if you're egotistical and a narcissist, right? You're which a lot of CEOs can be, right? You're only 6% of the population, and yet they represent like 30, I think it was 33 or 38% of the CEOs in the workplace, right? So that's where that whole communication comes down. So it's you have to understand, who the heck you are and who the heck you have, on staff, right?
Well, one of the things I tell people is that we all get distracted by the smoke and we need to focus on the fire.
Mm.
We need to understand what the source is, and we need to get to that. And then I also talk about like if people tell me they're problem solvers, I'm like, that's great, but what after that? What? And they, what do you mean? I said, I don't want a problem solver. I want a problem solver and a problem preventer. How do you make it never happen again? And that's the thing. If you go to the source and if you work to fix things forever, then as the CEO, the narcissist, the egomaniac, you're building a great team. Like it serves your purpose. It just has to go against your character.
Mhm.
And like the biggest power in the world is for people to feel trusted, cared for, and protected. And again, that's why my logo is a warrior helmet, because I am a warrior and I will protect you. And if there's an external threat, I'm the first to charge. And if there's an internal threat, I will be kind originally, but if it does not get fixed, I will not jeopardize my village for one.
Hmm.
and people need to. You talked about something about getting rid of high performers that are toxic. Simon Sinek, have you ever seen his
Hmm.
Navy SEAL Team 6 talk
Hmm.
about productivity versus trust? Have you seen that
Yeah, I
one?
have actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember how he ended it?
No.
We talk about I'll trust with my life, but not my money and my wife. And most business would prefer a medium productivity to high trust than a high productivity, low trust. Because if you don't have that trust, you can't have anything. He goes, and this is my favorite part of the thing. He goes, and everybody knows who this high productivity, low trust person is. And they're the easiest person in the world to find in any organization. You just ask the people that work there, who's the asshole? And like it is your job as a leader to remove them expeditiously. I went to, I don't even know, like 18 different businesses through my career, and like the toxic bully self-serving people, they stunk. Like I could find them instantly,
Hmm.
and I would address it. And the minute it was addressed and they were gone, there was a tangible relief, and there was a sigh, and they would go like, "So time somebody took care of that person. Like it's how like why did it take so long? Like I don't know, but I love little metaphors and statements and things, and I think it's Japanese. The longer you stay on the wrong train, the more expensive it is to get back home. Don't let them keep taking in the wrong direction.
Hmm. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. So, all right, so tell me a bit about your business then. So, who do you where do you find yourself as far as where, like, are you most customers Canada, US? Are you, uh,
It's been really challenging because there are a lot of coaches out there, and I've spent the first 2 years building my foundation and building my reputation. Um, Surprisingly, I would say probably 60% of my clients and customers come locally. I'm very active in the business market in Sarnia. I'm on the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm currently working with City of Sarnia Economic Development and Sarnia Lambton Economic Partnership to build a succession plan and program for businesses that are potentially closing the future and new business want to buy. Like I'm all over the place. But something happened where I hit a couple of weird opportunities. There's one gentleman in Utah who has a production company I'm working with. There's a young lady in Mississauga who's a sales manager who I'm working with. I was working with a minister in Florida, and I'm not a religious person at all. I was working with a designer in Boston, working with a young lady in Nigeria, trying to help her advance her career. Like it's the I don't understand where the reach comes from. It's within the network. The production owner it has a big reach, and his stuff brought me people, but the majority of my success is local right now.
yeah, and and so as a public service announcement to anybody that's thinking of being a coach, it's harder than you think to get off the ground, and I'll also include books, right? If you writing a book is harder than you think, and you're not going to make any money off it. And and then being a coach is also harder than you think. But it's very rewarding once you get your clientele built up. You know,
Yep.
I've never heard of anybody that regrets doing it, that's for sure. But it is a bit of work to get moving. Yeah, but you're doing the right things, right?
Yeah. Well, I was corporate through my whole career. And then I dabbled in ownership in St. Catharines. I was the vice president of 7 businesses with a business partner, and he was egomaniac and narcissistic, and I just was tired. And our first grandson was born, and my wife said, "You don't like what you're doing, and I need to hold my grandson." And I'm like, what are you saying? She goes, let's move home, because she's from here.
Mhm.
So we sold everything, packed everything, and then I got here. And I'm like, what am I doing? She goes, John, you spent your whole career fixing people and businesses. Do it for yourself. So I hung out my shingle, and I've been having a great time since. Like it's the feedback, David, of from people, like the Google reviews I've got. I've changed those people's lives forever. And it's so it's not just a, can you give me a Google review? Like it's, I think I only have like 12. And there's one young lady that I'm working with right now, and she gave the phrase, "You're the best thing that's happened to me in years."
Yeah. So put this in perspective, right? So if you run a bunch of leadership programs, truthfully, John, you're not going to touch everybody, right? But in the group, you will have impact on a person. Like every one of us had that one teacher that did something with us or took time or took effort or, special attention. That type of thing happens as a coach or leadership development, um, often. And you built a lifelong friend out of just helping them out. Like these people go to battle for you any time of the day, right? But it's and that is tremendously rewarding. I've spent a bunch of time around um other coaches and hear that a fair bit. But so yeah, that's a good win to impact people and positive is awesome.
Well, the other thing, I'm being forced into doing things. I did two hospitality trainings, and just last week I did two focus groups on succession. And I tell them, I say, like, I prefer the one-on-one. Like I'm not a classroom person. And oh, I also did a one for economic partnership for difficult conversations. And I have I have an approach, and it's terrible. I tell them at the start, I go, workshops don't work. And I said, so, um, like, what was the last workshop you were on? And nobody could remember. I said, what was the person's name who presented? And they couldn't remember. And I'm like, what'd you learn? And they can't remember. I said, so there's going to be a test at the end. Like, because I don't want you to etch and sketch out of here and not do anything. So pay attention, because there's going to be a test, and your bosses are paying for you to be here. So there'll be a test at the end. And then I go through my stuff and I do my thing, and it's interactive and stuff like that. And then the test literally is, what three or four things are you going to take away from this training?
Mhm.
And I make them write it down. And then I ask them for commitments to what they're going to do to be better. And then I have them write it, and their boss signs it.
Mhm.
And because if I don't say that, they don't listen. And if I do say that, they listen. And when they listen, they write it down in their notes, and then they write it down again, and they make a commitment to their boss, and then they hand it off. I went from 0 to 6% retention to like 9 to 35%.
Mhm.
And but every time I tell them there's a test, you could just like, they're like, oh, gee, what? So yeah, so the one-on-one is definitely my preference.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it just makes more sense, right? That's where the impact is. That's where you can focus on, especially if you can read any sort of body language and get to uncover anything. It's certainly hard to do when you're painting a room with one brush, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like if it's more than 10, I can't keep track of the room.
No, no, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Cool. So John is going to give me a link in a bio. He doesn't know it, but he's going to give me a link in a bio to this and all that sort of good stuff.
This John?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. I like that you're talking about me in the third person. I enjoy that.
yeah. And then, well, I had, we could do that and throw like a sporting twist on it, right? Um, and so John's going to give me a link in bio on how to get a hold of him or any other things. So if anybody's watching this and wants to have a conversation with him, you can certainly
This is
do that.
it. This
Hmm?
was it.
Yeah, I'll edit this up. Well, we can do another
I
one.
thought, I thought we were just getting to know each other, buddy. I was,
Oh, well, I'd say we do it.
that's fantastic, Dave. That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah,
Ah,
we'll
was my hair okay? Is it
yeah,
okay?
no, you're fine.
Uh,